Welcome to our deep dive into the world of Dr. John Dee.
A fascinating figure.
Now, you've shared some sources with us, and we're going to be exploring Dee's diaries and really kind of try answer the question, was he a brilliant mind ahead of his time or someone caught in the mystical currents of the 16th century?
Yeah, it's a question that has captivated historians for centuries. Because Dee was a man of many talents, a true polymath.
Right.
Mathematician, astronomer, astrologer,
Oh, wow.
geographer, and an advisor to Queen Elizabeth I.
I mean, you can't really get much higher up than that, right?
No, not at the time.
So we've got this incredible primary source, Dee's diary, which gives us a window into his life and thoughts. And right off the bat, we see how he navigated this world of Elizabethan politics.
Right.
He even coined the term British Empire, like he saw England as this dominant force on the world stage.
And what's fascinating is that Dee saw his work, both scientific and mystical, as serving the greater good of England. He believed that knowledge, whether gained through observation of the stars or conversations with angels, could be harnessed for the nation's benefit.
So for Dee, there wasn't necessarily a hard line between the scientific and the mystical.
Exactly. Dee was a product of the Renaissance,
Right.
a time when the lines between science and magic were very blurry.
Yeah.
He believed that the universe held secrets that could be unlocked through both observation and divine revelation.
So that's where these angelic conversations come in.
Right.
He believed that angels held the keys to those secrets.
Dee saw angels as messengers of God, conduits to a higher realm of knowledge.
Okay.
He wasn't seeking to conjure demons or dabble in dark magic.
Right.
These conversations were a form of religious devotion, a way to access divine wisdom.
But he didn't just sit in a dark room and hope for a vision, right? He had a system, a method for communicating with these angels.
It was called scrying, and it involved gazing into crystals or mirrors to induce visions and receive messages. You can think of it as a very structured form of meditation, but with the goal of contacting the angelic realm.
And he wasn't alone in these endeavors.
Right.
This is where Edward Kelly enters the picture, a figure shrouded in almost as much mystery as Dee himself.
Yeah, Kelly was Dee's scryer. He claimed to have the ability to see and hear the angels that Dee was trying to contact.
Wow.
Now, Kelly's a controversial figure, even convicted of forgery at one point, which, leads some historians to question his involvement with Dee.
So there's a chance Kelly was manipulating Dee.
It's possible.
But Dee seemed to genuinely believe in their work together.
That's what makes this dynamic so interesting. Dee was a brilliant man, but even brilliant minds can be vulnerable to influence.
Yeah.
And Kelly, despite his questionable past, seemed to play a crucial role in Dee's angelic conversations.
And he describes these encounters in incredible detail in his diary.
Yes.
He creates a whole system of symbols and diagrams to represent this angelic language,
Right.
which he calls Enochian. It wasn't just a casual interest, this was a serious pursuit.
And Enochian is truly fascinating. Dee believed it was the language spoken by angels,
Yeah.
a divine language given to humanity before the fall from grace. He meticulously recorded vocabulary lists, grammatical rules, even prayers in Enochian.
Wow. So like he was trying to decode a celestial language.
Exactly.
So we've got this picture of Dee, a brilliant scholar, advisor to the queen, and someone deeply immersed in attempting to communicate with angels.
Right.
I mean, that's already a lot to unpack.
Yeah.
But there's another layer to Dee's story that we need to explore, his incredible library.
Dee's library was legendary, one of the largest private collections in England at the time.
Wow.
Over 4,000 books and manuscripts on topics ranging from mathematics and astronomy to alchemy and the occult.
Wow.
It was a treasure trove of knowledge that reflected Dee's insatiable curiosity and his belief in the power of books.
That's an amazing collection. It really speaks to Dee's dedication to scholarship and his desire to preserve knowledge,
Yeah.
especially during a time of such upheaval and change like the English Reformation.
And it wasn't just about hoarding knowledge.
Oh.
Dee opened his library to others. He welcomed scholars, students, anyone with a thirst for learning. He saw himself as a steward of knowledge responsible for passing it on to future generations.
A powerful reminder that knowledge is meant to be shared, not hidden away.
Absolutely.
So we have this picture of Dee as a man of science, a man of God, and a man of books.
And it's through his diary that we get to see the human side of this larger-than-life figure.
Right.
He writes about his daily routines, his worries about money, his struggles with illness, and his deep love for his wife and children.
Right. It's those personal touches that make Dee relatable even across centuries.
It's like we're peeking behind the curtain and seeing the man behind the myth.
And yet there's still so much that we don't know about him, especially those missing years after his diary abruptly ends in 1583.
Right.
What secrets did Dee take with him?
That's the question that keeps historians and enthusiasts coming back to Dee's story.
So as we move into part 2 of our deep dive, we'll be exploring those missing years and taking a closer look at those controversial angelic conversations. Stick with us because things are about to get even more interesting.
Absolutely. Welcome back to our deep dive into the life and mysteries of Dr. John Dee. Last time we touched on his angelic conversations and that unique language that he called Enochian.
Yeah.
You might be wondering, what exactly did Dee hope to achieve through these conversations?
Yeah, like what kind of knowledge was he seeking from the angels?
Well, Dee's motivations were very complex and multi-layered.
Yeah.
On the one hand,
Okay.
he was a very devoutly religious man,
Right.
and he was seeking divine guidance. He believed that angels could offer insights into the nature of God and the universe, perhaps even, help him live a more virtuous life.
Right, so similar to how someone might seek wisdom from religious texts or spiritual leaders today.
Yes, but Dee took it a step further. He wasn't content with interpreting existing scripture.
Okay.
He wanted direct access to the divine, a sort of celestial hotline. And on the other hand, Dee was also a pragmatist.
Okay.
He saw knowledge, regardless of its source, as a tool that could be used to solve practical problems, to advance science, and ultimately benefit England.
That makes sense given his role as an advisor to Queen Elizabeth I and his interest in things like navigation and exploration.
Exactly. Dee's diaries are filled with requests for angelic guidance on a wide range of topics.
Wow.
From deciphering alchemical formulas to navigating political intrigue, it's like he was seeking a divine edge in all aspects of his life.
Okay, so let's talk about the actual content of these angelic conversations. Like, what kind of messages were Dee and Kelly actually receiving?
Well, the messages covered an incredibly diverse range of topics. We
Yeah.
see the angels providing instructions on creating magical seals,
Wow.
performing rituals,
Okay.
even offering insights into the workings of the natural world. Dee recorded all of this meticulously in his diaries,
Right.
often accompanying in the text with elaborate diagrams and symbols.
So it's almost like he was creating a celestial instruction manual.
Yes, blending science, religion, and magic.
Right.
Dee was clearly a very systematic thinker, even in his pursuit of the supernatural.
Okay.
He wanted to understand the underlying structure and logic of the angelic realm, to codify it in a way.
Okay.
And this is where Enochian comes back into play.
Right, the angelic language.
Yeah.
Dee and Kelly claimed the angels dictated this language to them, and Dee spent years studying it, compiling dictionaries and grammatical rules.
Enochian wasn't just a means of communication for Dee.
Okay.
He believed it held a much deeper significance. He saw it as a language of creation,
Wow.
a language that could potentially manipulate the forces of the universe.
So like a cosmic programming language?
That's a really interesting way to think about it. Dee was, in essence, attempting to unlock a hidden code,
Right.
a language that could bridge the gap between the human and the divine.
I mean, it's all pretty mind-blowing, but was there any evidence that Dee and Kelly were actually successful in using this angelic knowledge?
Right.
Did they achieve any tangible results?
Well, that's where things get even more complicated. Dee's diaries do mention instances where he believed angelic guidance led to success,
Okay.
whether it was in his alchemical experiments or navigating political challenges, but separating fact from fiction is incredibly difficult in this context.
Yeah, I imagine it's tough to assess those claims through a modern lens.
Yeah,
We're talking about a time when alchemy and magic were considered legitimate areas of study.
exactly. We can't judge Dee's experiences based on our current scientific understanding.
Right.
We have to try to understand his work within the intellectual framework of his time.
Speaking of the intellectual framework of the time, I think it's important to acknowledge that not everyone was on board with Dee's pursuits. He faced a lot of criticism for his interest in the occult.
Absolutely. Dee's work was controversial, even dangerous. He was accused of heresy sorcery, even treason.
Wow.
And remember, this was a time of religious and political upheaval in England. Dabbling in the occult could land you in very serious trouble.
So Dee was taking a risk by pursuing these angelic conversations. Oh, absolutely.
It wasn't just an academic exercise for him.
He was putting his reputation, perhaps even his life, on the line. And that, to me, suggests a very deep conviction in his work.
Right.
Whether he was delusional, a true believer, or something in between, Dee clearly felt that these conversations were worth the risk.
All right, let's delve a little deeper into the specifics of these angelic encounters. Dee and Kelly claim to communicate with a whole host of angels. Can you tell us more about some of the key figures in Dee's angelic hierarchy?
Absolutely. Dee's system blended traditional Christian angelology with elements of Kabbalah and other esoteric traditions. He had his favorites, of course.
Okay.
Uriel, the angel of knowledge and wisdom,
Okay.
was a frequent visitor, often depicted holding a book or a scroll,
Right.
fitting for Dee's scholarly inclinations.
Makes sense.
And then there's Michael, the warrior angel, often depicted with a sword.
Right.
Michael was a very powerful figure in Dee's system. He represented strength, protection, and divine justice.
Dee likely saw Michael as a source of support and guidance in his often perilous pursuit of knowledge.
Right. It's fascinating how Dee's angelic hierarchy reflects his own personality and aspirations.
Yeah.
He sought knowledge from angels like Uriel, but also protection from forces that might oppose his work,
Right.
hence Michael's prominent role.
It's like Dee was building his own spiritual support network, tailored to his very specific needs and goals.
Now, we've talked about scrying as Dee's method of communication.
Yeah.
Can you elaborate a bit more on the tools and techniques he used?
Dee's scrying sessions were highly ritualized. He used crystals, mirrors,
Okay.
and a special polished stone called a shoe stone, which is basically a black obsidian mirror.
Okay.
He believed that these objects could act as focal points for his visions.
So it wasn't just staring into a random crystal ball.
No.
There was a system, a process involved.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Dee created elaborate diagrams and tables, which he believed acted as conduits for angelic communication. He used prayers, incantations, specific gestures, almost like a choreography of spiritual energy.
And of course, we can't forget Edward Kelly's role in all of this.
Right.
He was Dee's scryer, the one who claimed to see and hear the angels. What do we know about Kelly and his relationship with Dee?
Kelly is a tricky figure. He had a reputation as a bit of a con man.
Yeah.
Remember, he was convicted of forgery before meeting Dee, but Dee seemed to genuinely believe in Kelly's abilities.
Yeah, so it seems like a very complex relationship.
It was a roller coaster.
Yeah.
Dee's diaries reveal moments of great intimacy and collaboration, but also periods of conflict and distrust.
I guess even in the world of angelic communication, human relationships can get messy.
Exactly. And the fact that their partnership ultimately fell apart adds another layer of intrigue to this whole story.
Okay, so we've got this fascinating blend of spirituality, science ambition, and even a bit of drama. And all of this is happening against the backdrop of the English Reformation, a time of immense religious and political upheaval. It's no wonder Dee's story continues to fascinate people centuries later.
He embodies so many contradictions. He was a man of science who embraced magic, a devout Christian who sought knowledge from angels, a scholar who dreamt of building an empire.
Right, Dee's life was anything but conventional, and that's what makes him so compelling. But there's one piece of the puzzle we still haven't explored in detail, those missing years after his diary ends.
Right.
What might Dee have been up to during that time?
That's the cliffhanger we'll be exploring in part 3 of our deep dive. We'll delve into some of the theories and speculation surrounding those missing years and consider the lasting legacy of this very enigmatic figure.
Welcome back to the final part of our deep dive into the world of Dr. John Dee. We've journeyed through his scientific pursuits, his angelic conversations, his complex relationships, and even his controversial reputation.
And now we finally get to address those missing years after Dee's diary abruptly ends in 1583. It's like a historical cliffhanger.
It really is. What was Dee up to during that time?
Well, the silence of those years has fueled a lot of speculation. Some historians suggest that Dee might have gone on secret missions for Queen Elizabeth I.
Okay.
Perhaps utilizing his knowledge of navigation and geography for diplomatic or even espionage purposes.
Like a 16th century James Bond? I could see that.
It's not entirely implausible given his connections at court and his diverse skill set. Others believe that he continued his work with Edward Kelly, perhaps delving even deeper into their angelic conversations and really pushing the boundaries of their practices.
Yeah, that would certainly explain why he might have wanted to keep things under wraps.
Exactly. Remember, Dee was already under scrutiny for his occult activities.
Right.
If he and Kelly were venturing into uncharted territory, they might have chosen to do so discreetly away from prying eyes.
And there's also the possibility that Dee simply needed a break from the pressures of court life and the controversies surrounding his work.
Yeah, he might have sought refuge in his studies, perhaps even traveling to other parts of Europe to connect with like-minded scholars and alchemists.
Right, so maybe those missing years were a time of quiet reflection and research for Dee,
It's certainly possible.
a chance to process his experiences and delve deeper into his own interests.
We may never know for sure what transpired during those years, but the lack of definitive answers only adds to the allure of Dee's story.
It's a reminder that history is not always a neat and tidy narrative. Sometimes the gaps and mysteries are just as intriguing as the known facts.
Speaking of intrigue, let's talk about Dee's return to England in 1589. He came back to find his home at Mortlake ransacked and much of his library destroyed.
That's heartbreaking to have such a vast collection of knowledge accumulated over decades vandalized like that.
It was a devastating loss both for Dee personally and for the world of scholarship. Imagine the insights we might have gained from those lost volumes.
It speaks to the fragility of knowledge, the fact that even the most carefully curated collections can be vulnerable to the whims of fate or the actions of those who don't understand their value.
Dee appealed to Queen Elizabeth for assistance, but his pleas for support largely went unanswered. It seems his favorite court had waned during his absence.
Perhaps his association with Edward Kelly, who by that point was increasingly seen as a charlatan and a troublemaker, had tarnished Dee's reputation.
It's certainly a possibility. Dee's later years were marked by financial struggles and a sense of disillusionment. He continued to pursue his studies and seek patronage, but he never regained the influence he once held.
It's a sad end for someone who had contributed so much to England's intellectual and scientific advancement.
Dee's story is a reminder that even those who achieve great things are not immune to the vagaries of fortune. But despite the setbacks and disappointments, Dee never abandoned his quest for knowledge.
He remained a tireless scholar and seeker until his death in 1608 or 1609.
We don't even know the exact year.
It's fitting in a way that even his death is shrouded in a bit of mystery.
It adds a final flourish to the enigma of Dr. John Dee.
So as we reach the end of our deep dives, what have we learned about this complex and contradictory figure?
Well, we've seen how Dee straddled the worlds of science and magic, embracing the rational and the irrational in his pursuit of knowledge. He was a brilliant mathematician, astronomer, and geographer, but also a devout Christian who sought divine wisdom through angelic conversations.
He was a trusted advisor to Queen Elizabeth I, a visionary who dreamt of a British empire, and a controversial figure whose interest in the occult sparked both admiration and condemnation.
Dee's story challenges us to rethink our own assumptions about history and the nature of knowledge.
Absolutely.
He reminds us that the pursuit of truth can take many forms, and that the boundaries between science, religion, and magic are not always clear-cut.
His legacy is a tapestry woven from threads of brilliance, ambition, controversy, and enduring mystery. Dee's quest for knowledge may have ended centuries ago, but the questions he raised and the paths he forged continue to intrigue and inspire us today. So for you listening, we hope this deep dive has sparked your own curiosity about Dr. John Dee and the world he inhabited.
Keep exploring, keep questioning, and who knows what mysteries you might unlock in your own journey of discovery.